Are you ready to learn how to scale yourself even with multiple businesses? This is the 𝐲𝐤𝐞𝐜 Podcast Season 3, where we are interviewing week by week amazing serial entrepreneurs on how they were able to ditch the grind and scale themselves even as they have multiple businesses. So if you're ready to grow beyond where you are and start scaling yourself, then tune into this episode of the 𝐲𝐤𝐞𝐜 Podcast. I am your host, Lai Lacaba. I'm the co-founder of 𝐸𝐢𝐞𝐜, where we hire, train, and manage AI-enabled executive assistants for your business, and Create AI, where we map out your business and automate it using AI. Now, our guest today is a seasoned entrepreneur and business coach, as Nico Lawrence has spent the last 2 decades navigating the startup world and turning challenges into triumphs. With experience in sectors like tech, property, and renewable energy, he has a proven track record of building successful businesses and raising capital. He is now dedicated to mentoring and coaching entrepreneurs, helping them level up their game and achieve their goals. Okay, everyone, so please help me welcome our amazing guest today, Nico. Hi, Nico.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Where are you at in the world right now?
I'm in London.
So back on the current home base. I remember one of the first conversations we've had, and I was looking over your profile. I found it really interesting that you've had multiple ventures in life, which is of course why you're perfect for this part of the season of 𝐸𝐤𝐜, where we're talking about multiple businesses. So walk us through what has been kind of the 3 to 5, I usually ask 3 to 5 highlights of your life that kind of led you here.
Okay, interesting question. 3 to 5. The highlights. Well, I think being an entrepreneur is not something that's natural. People say, naturally I'm an entrepreneur. You become naturally better at being an entrepreneur.
True.
And initially I started like everyone else. I had a 9 to 5. I'll be honest, I didn't know what I wanted to be, and probably till my late 20s. And, I job hopped as well. Yeah, I wasn't like super frequent, but I changed jobs and career kind of ideas, from banking and finance to sales. And then I was going to be in recruitment, through my 20s. Yeah. And then you kind of have a decision what you want to make about what you want to do, right? Do you want to go this career ladder route, which again fits many people, and it was good for me for many years, but I felt like I was really missing something, and that's something I couldn't put my finger on, but I had a drive to kind of control my income. At the time, it was money motivated. Only later did passion take over what I wanted to become, and so it became very much my time versus money. Yeah. And I started to create roles, and it was mainly around sales and my profession around being very good in sales and speaking and stuff like that, and negotiations. And so as I stepped through different kind of phases in my life, that was my main motivation, which was unfortunately, but it is what it is when you're young, was like financial freedom. Yeah. Once you reach a healthy income, and you kind of have that kind of financial freedom, you're much better than you used to be. You don't worry about the bills as much. You kind of like want to go on lavish holidays. You're buying properties, all this kind of up the ladder stuff. I then realized I was unfulfilled, and I wasn't happy. The money and the effort, and I worked so long hours. I worked real hard. I'm a real hard worker, always have been. But I felt like I needed more. I needed to create more. When I mean create, it was like the empire syndrome. So at the time I was living in China. I spent 10 years in China. I moved to China with my very good friend and at the time my wife, and we went to Dubai. And Dubai was a transition. It gave us a very luxurious life, and I created again from scratch new business. I took the old business from China and I created new businesses. But the evolution of the person is what matters, not really the business. And I realized what I was doing was really for fame, if you like. Yeah, my own personal kind of ventures were for like my satisfaction, and which you learn later in life is really just you judging yourself constantly. And so this was something I didn't realize at the time. So I was very good at succeeding, and it was kind of like the Midas touch guy. Everyone knew I was very good at doing things, and I'm very blessed to have that skill. However, it was pushed rather than pulled. What I mean by that is I was pushing all the time, but I wasn't pulled towards a purpose. Mm-hmm. And so I went out and I became a full-fledged entrepreneur. And, that was the stepping stone to having 20, 30 people in front of me, mm-hmm. Every day, relying on me, building into my dream. And it wasn't just about let's close deals. This was about let's grow something different. I was creating concepts around lifestyle. I've been in F&B. I've been in new energy and clean energy. And I've also created property and lifestyle businesses, like I mentioned. And once I started doing something that had a purpose, it all changed for me. There was big stepping stones. And the last but not least, which has took me to where I am now, was the reset I unfortunately had to endure during the pandemic, when pretty much my successful world came crumbling down, unfortunately, like many people in business. And that was probably the catalyst for I only work from passion and nothing else.
Got it. Well, there's that. I remember having the same thoughts as we all do usually when we go through the entrepreneur journey. Of a lot of the times when we start being entrepreneur, we're usually running away from something, and then we get to the point where like, oh no, I have nothing to run away from anymore, or and then making that switch. To I'm going towards something, and it is definitely more rewarding when you're going towards something rather than running away from something else. So I can see that part of your entrepreneur journey. So for those who are listening or watching this video and they have no idea what it is that you do, can you walk us through the different businesses that you've had before? The ones you said, you mentioned the one that you had in China for so long, and the one that you moved to Dubai, as well as the current ones that you're excited about, that you're passionate about, especially the ones that you're growing as well.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Initially, it was mainly finance based. I was very much about portfolio management, asset management, working with high net worths. I started my career in HSBC as a corporate guy. That was something, as I mentioned, that didn't float my boat after some years, but it was a great learning curve and a good company. Mm-hmm. And then I built a kind of wealth management private advisory in China with partners, which we sold for seven figures after 7 years. So I was quite happy with what I achieved. But then I wanted to recreate something a bit more specific, a bit more customized, and recreate and revolutionize that part of the industry. The only thing is with finance and this kind of like portfolio management business is that it is what it is. And you revolutionize the way you think about it, the way you perform, and how you do what you do, but it's still the same thing, right? It's performance based. You give me money and I go out and do something with it. And you could build the best teams and most, the best digital platforms, but it's still pretty much the same thing. And so that wasn't doing it for me anymore. I felt like I was doing the same thing, it just dressed differently, right?
Yeah.
So that was the change for me. So I did create a very private, actually one of the world's first nano family offices, and that consultancy still goes, and we're a private consultancy on behalf of private individuals, where we go and have specialist portfolios made for their private money. Mm-hmm. And we also worked with companies, and we still do, helping them strategically plan what they're doing with their revenues and how they're going to possibly grow their business in different ways. So it was a bit more consulting based, which has been really, really successful. It's always been quite small. I don't want to expand it too much because I know how much time it would take. So, it's like you can do this, but do you want to do it all week or just some of the week? So we kept it in a good place. But the entrepreneurship is where it really got creative for me. I created a lifestyle business, very similar to WeWork, the co-working business. Yeah. So basically, I looked at WeWork back in the day. This is probably 8 years ago, and WeWork was the big name then. Of course, before their valuations also got hit in the pandemic and stuff. Yep. And I thought I could make this better. I can make this more personal. And so I looked at their model. Of course, you've got 𝐲𝐻𝐿 and other service offices have been around many years, but they're all very basic. WeWork brought out cooler buildings with better coffee.
Yeah.
Generally, yeah, it wasn't much more to them outside of a 𝐲𝐻𝐿. So I created a lifestyle concept where in my buildings, we had 5 buildings in the end in London, one in Shanghai, and Dubai. So basically in my buildings, you'd have restaurants that were, associated with the whole package and membership. We had cocktail makers come up and make cocktails by your desk. Friday afternoons were big fun in my buildings. We had gyms that were incorporated, so you had fitness and PTs that were incorporated in the membership. So not only did you get a membership for an office, but you got your own studio, private for you guys, with PTs on hand. So really a lifestyle and well-being, as well as kind of like that work ethic that, the WeWork companies led. So quite successful, very, very hard work. And yeah, it was a beautiful journey. And also I created an F&B product. In F&B, I've created healthy, natural, sugar-free drinks. I've been involved in tech, and I've also had some, setbacks and failures. Some businesses, we try our hardest, and we have shiny object syndrome as entrepreneurs. Something now I'm teaching not to do in my new business, which I'll come to in a moment. So I dabbled in numerous different sectors, and the real reason behind this was to diversify my interests, being my revenues. And it was exciting, and it still is exciting to have numerous businesses, but it's a huge amount of work unless you are experienced. When I look back at how I started with different ideas and different startups, it was a lot of pain. It was a lot of grind, and you know this yourself. The work you have to put into an idea, and then you have a spin-off idea, and then your friend comes to you with this amazing idea. Say, I'll give you 1 day a week and I'll put some money, and then you end up almost running that company too. And it's the nature of the beast. But if you could control yourself in the early stages with the yeses and nos, you will make better decisions later.
Sure. Like what you say hell yes to and what you say no to, basically. So you said you were going to get to it. So what is the thing that you're currently passionate about on top of the other businesses that you have?
Yeah. So it's got to the stage where I've helped numerous friends with their businesses. I've mentored friends of mine, people I know in the industry, and particularly post-pandemic, people were coming to me going, help me, I don't know what to do here. I need to raise this much money to save the company. People's cash runway was running out, of course, across the board. I'm not the only story that struggled for a good couple of years. And I found myself going in and coaching people on A, mindset, B, decisions and stuff like that, and helping them navigate the tough periods and stress. And something I've learned over the years, which was learned through complete trial by error, was how to manage stress. And so I decided about a year ago that I would go into coaching and help with people like me, people that are maybe younger or in their earlier stages of growing their businesses and growing themselves and growing their personal brand, as well as their multi-company or company brand. I figured I could add a lot of value, and to be quite frank, it's been the most passionate project I've ever got involved with, which is helping with the value and helping people, because so many of us, particularly as founders, we're focused on our company and our product. That's all we care about. We get up every day and that's what we dream about, and that's what we care about. But if it comes to expanding the business and scaling the business, and we need $1 million, we need to get our revenues to 5 million from 1 million, and all these different, numbers that can be out there. It doesn't matter about the numbers, but that change, that takes a huge amount of energy from the founder, as well as running the business and the team.
Yep.
So I figured that's where I could come in and take a lot of pain out of the grind. I've successfully built a really, really cool program. I've got a couple of different programs, but it's built around how I live, holistically. So I'm building fitness, health, nutrition, you name it, to how to make you better and the better version of you. I've built it in, and it's become so passionate for me. And it's much like the consultancy and looking after people's personal finances and stuff like that. That was passionate for me. I got to know people. I know the name of their kids. I know what their business does. I know their wife by first name terms, or husband. I get that passion from people. And once you channel into that passion, then you really are reborn, And so that's where I am right now with a beautiful coaching business that I'm launching. And it's just the whole world's opened up for me again.
Got it. Well, I hope for anyone who's watching the video, you literally lit up when you started talking about the thing that you're passionate about at the moment. So I loved seeing that. And I hope people caught that in your voice. Because for me, of course, like I can physically see the way that you stood up a little straighter, you got really excited. A funny indicator for me always when people start using their hands is that they're really into it. It's not just a mind thing, it's also with their body language. Basically, they're able to express what it is. So that is amazing to hear that it is something that you are passionate about, and it is something that not a lot of entrepreneurs would care to admit. It's always the hindsight of like, oh yeah, I needed help here. But it is with every single entrepreneur journey of like, we get to the point where like, oh yeah, I'm making about 20 to 30,000 a month. I want to make more, but like, where do I start? And like, it sounds like your program is a perfect kind of bridge for people, especially if they've been, as most entrepreneurs are, stubborn to get help in the first place. So it sounds like a very good way for people to kind of see a example of how to do things, because I'm very much the same way. Like, I'm grateful for a lot of my coaches and mentors who gave me a vision of like, oh, this is how it can be, because then like I said, it's that bridge basically to get to the next level. So as you're doing this, and I know you have a big move coming up, you have things going on in your life, how are you able to make sure that for different types of businesses that you've had or the things that you're currently working on, that you're able to put in, doesn't have to be the same amount of effort, but you're able to check in and make sure that things are still running even when you're not there?
Well, let's start with the basics. Time management is absolutely crucial. Mm-hmm. And I am completely religious around my diary. Mm-hmm. There is no changing the basics that are important, and that's your diary is so important for you. And to make sure you have enough time, it's really important that your morning is associated around with your time as well. Mm-hmm. Once the morning goes wrong, the day is behind. We all know this, and it's a classic one. But what I do is when I get up every morning at 5 a.m. Mm-hmm. When I get up, I'm ahead of my day. By the time most people are starting, the 9-ish mark or 8:30, but by the time most professionals are starting to really get active, I've had 2-3 hours of reviewing my diary, getting stuff done, making sure I'm ahead of stuff. Mm-hmm. I will openly admit that on a daily basis, I will change my diary if I need to. Mm-hmm. And my assistant used to say to me in Dubai, it takes about 3 meetings to meet you. I've worked out your and I've always been apologetic. Sometimes I'd say to people, hey, I'm really sorry, we need to move it, X, Y, and Z. I won't be someone who's pushed into filling up the diary to be busy, because you have to prioritize what you're doing. Sure. And that goes across the board with different companies. So it's really important that you review your diary in the morning and make sure the needful's done. But most important, and really important, is delegation. Mm-hmm. And you will know as well as me, this is so difficult to grasp, especially in the beginning, right? Because you have this whole like overarching business with the VAs and everything else. So you took that transition, right? Mm-hmm. And you obviously use one yourself as well. Yeah. And so most leaders really delegate quite badly. Okay, it's just the way we are. We struggle with it, and I'm no different example. Once you can delegate properly, when I say delegate properly, I'm talking really let go of things and hand them over. You realize how much free time you can create.
Yep.
And so that's an internal battle, first of all. Again, it's something I teach in coaching because it's a problem. It's a challenge that people don't see, that they keep hitting very hard, you know. And, we like to make life difficult for ourselves sometimes because we're so super and so strong, and we run businesses and we grew this from nothing and all these things we tell ourselves, which are quite right. But that can get in the way as well. And so I delegate very well at the moment. It's took me years to get there. Of course, the key component to good delegation is good recruitment. We can go on and on about how you'd run your business. But for me, it's delegation and giving that trust. And look, hey, maybe someone won't be as creative as you on a particular subject, or maybe they don't care as much as you because they're on a salary and it's not their business. But if you give them the job and you treat them right and you trust what they do, they're motivated to perform. And it can be a simple process, but we make it complicated. Delegation's probably been my key outside of the classic time management. Yeah.
Got it. And of course, you're preaching to the choir really loudly.
You know about this, right?
But I love that you did start with time management. Like, nothing else makes sense if you don't know how to manage your time. But I have a few questions there for you. But I also, of course, loved it that you touched on delegation, of like getting to the point where yes, you did start this business on your own. Doesn't mean you have to grow it on your own as well. Like, there's other people who are more of an expert on this with you, or even better, they love doing this and you hate doing this. So it's more of finding the and this is how I describe it usually to our clients. It's finding the pieces of the puzzle, the pieces of your clock, so then your business runs smoothly. It doesn't have to be you're the main gear. There's other gears that basically fill in the gaps of the things that you might not be the best at, or you don't have to be the one doing, or you didn't even know in the first place that you had to be able to do. So it's an important key part. So on the time management part, I'm super curious, and this is definitely out of the questions that I sent you for the podcast, just because you've got me passionate, and passion is one of my core values in life. Is when it comes to time management, and like I said, I'm curious of how people think about this. Is like, what do you usually, or how do you advise for, except for here in the Philippines, like we have, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs who do night shift, mostly because their clients are in the US, and that's how they, I have this one crazy friend who will will run his whole business at night, and then in the morning, if I'm visiting his city, he'll still run around the city with me. I'm like, when do you sleep? He's like, what is sleep? But like, how do you advise for people who have kind of that lifestyle, who have a little bit of nighttime, but also having to balance having a life, like as someone who's kind of gone through it and probably managing different time zones, especially when you were in China where the time zone flip was also the same way. What are your pieces of advice of people who are still kind of a little bit in between of, I'm still grinding in my business, but at the same time I am starting to get a little bit of light, but I need a little way to not burn out, as people usually do?
It's a really tricky question. I know exactly what you mean. And, when I go to Manila, and I spend a lot of time in Manila.
It's true.
It really, really throws my whole timetable completely upside down.
Yep.
If the US or Canada, or it's the UK, we're talking quite a big difference in hours.
Yeah.
So it can be very difficult. And there is an adjustment period where everyone has to try things that work for them. So let's not forget what works for people. But I'll suggest what I kind of try to do, and what I also recommend for professionals to try and implement. Okay, so a normal sleeping regime is 7 to 8 hours. We're told that's what we're most productive. I find on 8 hours, I'm like Superman. On 7 hours, I'm just fine. On 6, I'm good. On 5 or less, I get grouchy. Okay. So we need to look at the well-being aspects of performance. So, for example, your friend we talk about, he sounds like a machine. He's working at 3 a.m. Then he probably gets some head down and he gets up. He might have a nap in the afternoon. I don't know how he does it, right? But he's worked out something that works for him, and he's probably performing at a pretty high level. But how hard is it on him that he doesn't realize how hard it is? An example, right? So you're on the running machine and you're trying to do your best and you're running as fast as you can. And then you go and get a PT. And the PT says, well, your heart rate is already at this level. Actually, you could run a little bit less but longer, and your heart rate stays the same. You can still get the same out of your workout, basically. You know, you could change the way you run. And you wouldn't have known that if you didn't have the PT, or you wouldn't have known that if you took the chance to change, because you get used to the habit. So you're getting used to this hard run. You got your head around it. You're all good. It doesn't really bother you.
Yeah.
What you don't realize is maybe performance-wise, you could be performing better by changing how you do it. And so this comes back to what works for people. But ideally, you would change your whole rota to fit around what you need to do. So for example, I had one guy, he said to me, I had a group kind of like a free discovery call with a group. And this one guy said to me, hey, no matter what, I'm nocturnal. So you talk about getting up at 5 or 6 and, you know, doing all these different beautiful routines. And I've got some great daily habits to really change what you do. He's like, but I can't sleep till like 3, 4 in the morning. So he basically just doesn't sleep very well. He sleeps late, and that's the way his system works. Now, we can all say, oh, that doesn't work and that's not good. But if his body reacts that way that it does and he feels fine with that, then maybe he's built a different way. Maybe his melatonin is produced later.
Yeah.
There could be factors that he does in his day, but maybe just naturally he does work that way, you know? It's like the very thin person who eats a lot but never puts on weight. It's just their metabolism's faster, right? So, you know, we can't sort of implement strict judge, you know, this is not working, this is why you're doing it, you know? But the essence is, I got him to then change his hours around so that his 6 a.m. was actually 10 a.m. Keep it simple. Absolutely. Yeah. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Because the moment you start saying to people, no, you need to get to bed earlier, you need to stop drinking coffee at this time, and it doesn't work for them. This guy just didn't work for him. I said to him, you know, I went through the whole, what time do you finish drinking coffee? You know, what time do you go to exercise? What, you know, all the things. I'm trying to work out why he's awake. You know, maybe he thinks he's awake when he doesn't have to be awake, you know. But the reality was he just was built that way. And we just kept it very simple. And he was okay with that. He was really surprised. He thought he'd have to really go. He tried so many times to go to bed early and stuff. It doesn't work for him.
Yeah.
He's still as productive as he wants. And look, it's about personal happiness, right? So we can give the best advice on probably what's better for you. But like your friend, if he's actually super happy and feels super energetic and it's not affecting him, and he can honestly look at himself and be that self-aware and say, I'm good, then he doesn't need to change anything.
True.
He probably could change things because he sounds super busy. He could probably make it easier for himself, you know, the running machines, you know, scenario, without doubt. But, you know, sometimes people just need to be comfortable and happy where they are. But wellness is a big supporter of it. It's not just about diary. It's how you feel.
Got it. No, that's a really good point on a lot of different ways. I teased a friend of mine of like, oh, you're just in your early mid-20s, it's fine. But it is a factor for exactly what you said. Like some people are just not like night people. They're just night owls. They can't sleep until a certain time. So it doesn't have to be that you have to feel bad about it. You can also find ways to get that bridge, that middle ground of like, okay, 10 a.m. is my 6 a.m. Then that one is more sustainable for that person, rather than forcing a map that doesn't make sense for who you are also in the life that you want. So thank you. So then that's on the time management question that I had. The other one on the delegation, and one that a statement that I agree to wholeheartedly is most entrepreneurs, and same thing, I remember for me as well, the same thing, we suck at delegating. Like that's something that just does not come natural to us.
Control.
Yeah. And it's funny for me because in the last 5 years of like having to exceed of like essentially pitching to people of like, you need to delegate. I've heard it all of like, I'd rather do it myself. I'd rather, you know, I want to check every single thing that comes out. I want to be the one to actually be doing this. And I'm like, so why are you on this call if you're not convinced yourself that someone else can do this? So for you, like anytime that someone says that of like, I don't even know where to start with delegating, what has been kind of your key piece of advice? Because talking about, you know, scaling and growing, this is the Scale You podcast. What has kind of been the either best practice or a quick piece of advice for someone to think about when it comes to delegating?
You need to take a personal view on this first, right? Because it's you versus you. The person you're delegating with, if you want to, I mean, we talk as openly as we should right now, so I'm going to be very frank with you. It's our judgments within our own head that maybe They might screw it up. They might not do it as well. They might be late. Maybe they just need your help anyway because you're a helpful person and you care. We can make all the excuses, right? And so these reasons will tell us that we are not control freaks, we are not perfectionists, we are not egotistic. We just want to help, right? It's all good. Help you. I know you said you got this. But the reality is that is so demotivating for the other person, you know. And it took me years to learn this. You know, I lost some good people back in the day. I don't mind admitting it. I look back now and I'm like, wow, I was all over him or all over her. I didn't give them any space and shine. And I was like, you know, even lip feeding them in meetings. You sure you feel that way? I think you do feel that way, you know. And you only learn later in life when you start to grow that that's no way to manage a team and manage yourself. So back to that personal conversation. So once you can get through to what we call acceptance and you really let go of what you are telling yourself, right? When it comes to that meeting where you go, right, okay, I actually don't like admin. I actually don't like it. I actually really suck at this, right? Because like you said, a lot of delegation is about the things you're not good at, right? And someone else is better at or more motivated to do. Once you get your head around those things, then you are free. And you know, one of the most painful things in growing multiple businesses, let alone one business, right? Because one business has multiple channels, right? So multiple channels of revenues, multiple channels of, like, you know, departments, let's say, for example, for better words. You need to have diverse thinking, right? So, you know, today you're doing the podcast and, you know, maybe you've got some other similar subjects where maybe straight after you've got something completely different to get onto, right? So it's diverse thinking for you, right? So you change the way you think for these different kind of areas of your life, let's say. You're not the same person, or you shouldn't be, when you walk in the house in the evening and say hi to your family or to your partner or to your cat or your dog. You're not the same person you've been in the office. So it's the same thing to give the value in that part of your life, which is another business, which again, I was like construction business at one point, you know, constructing buildings, which completely drained me and stressed me out completely. I mean, every day was an uphill battle. And then I'd step into a meeting and talk about F&B flavors. And do people like lemon and lime or do they like strawberry and lime, you know? And quite frankly, you know, it's a skill to switch, but unless you're delegating, you are trying to control so much. It's very hard. So the acceptance thing is really important. And, you know, and I don't mean to keep referring to the coaching, but since I've been doing the coaching, I implemented stuff I knew, and I've learned so much through my mentors now, who, you know, are some top guys and mainly based out of the US, on how to, you know, get yourself to acceptance, how to follow those processes that we talk about now, so that you really truly believe in the delegation you're doing. Because some people delegate because they have to. You should delegate because you know it's good for you, and you also know that it's good for the person you're delegating to give them that motivation.
Got it. And that's so true. And I don't mind at all that you keep referring to the coaching, because that is where you've been learning and you've been seeing a lot of these lessons come true as well. So thank you so much for sharing on both ends on like time management. I think I went to the other extreme on that, and I'm like, oh wait, what if this kind of person? And a lot of it is that preference and like finding what works for you. And then on the other side on delegation, it's a little bit of that acceptance of like, I probably shouldn't be the one, like I said, I probably should be the one doing this. It's probably not. I'm not that good at admin. I'm not good at this. It doesn't have to be that I'm the one fully doing this on my own. It can be done by someone else. So as you're moving towards a lot of new phases in your life, into the current passionate business that you have as well, and this is my favorite question into 𝐦𝐬𝐬𝐬 is, on the Scale Your podcast, is if we were able to completely clone you. Let's say there was a second Nico, a third, a fifth one, let's say 100 or 300, let's say an army of Nicos. What would the world look like? Like, how would you want to shape the world if you were able to scale yourself in that way? You had an army of you. What would that look like?
Wow. You didn't send me this question either.
Well, this was technically one. This was funny when we like This is technically in season 1, but I've loved it so much that I've kind of kept it through the whole thread, because it's such a good question to like get yourself out of your head, because we've gone through the details of your life, details of what it is that you do, but it is more of like, okay, wrapping that all together, what is that value that you want to scale?
Wow, that's such a powerful question, and it even makes me reflect. That's a really good question. So where would I start with that? What would it look like? First of all, I'd like to fill in what I think is missing in the world. Yeah, because I think as a society, as a race, as a human race, we've changed so fast over the last 100 years, right? I mean, I look back when I was a kid. I remember when you could smoke on planes, right? You get on these small planes, it'd be full of smoke and people smoking cigarettes, right? And I'm not that old, right? So we look at the 80s, we look at the 90s, everything changes so quickly. But the reality is, we're not self-aware anymore. And the self-awareness that we had over 100 years ago was because we had more time to self-reflect. TV, no. Internet, no. So all these distractions that we have that are very, very beautiful, they bring us lots of gifts. I'm not against social media, I'm not against the internet, of course, everything in moderation. But all these things that distract us now have taken away that human element of self-reflection, which helps us be aware. So for example, if you and I had nothing to do outside of when we don't work, we might work more, which is a bad thing, but hey, but the reality is when we have our downtime, we would probably have more time to reflect, but this email keeps coming and this keeps coming. And of course we have families and busy lives and everything else. I'm not saying, society should change in that way, but I'm saying we're not aware as humans, nowhere near to the percentage we should be. And they're saying that less than 5% of the world is aware of how they act. The statistics, we don't know how we act. We're not aware of our traits, positive or negative. And so the danger of that is if you're not aware, you can't change. If you can't change, then you can't improve yourself. And entrepreneurship and leadership and, even senior management and, being a director and so forth, just working hard and working your way up the ladder, you do have chances in your life to reflect because you have to, because you want to get to the next stage. You have to look at yourself and go, can I do this? Can I do this job? Can I take on this new role? Can I take on this new business idea? So you have chances to self-reflect. But most people, 95% of the world are not self-aware of themselves. And so they live and they die with, in essence, unfortunately, an underlying current of ignorance around what's around them. You can say ignorance is bliss, but how beautiful would it be to realize that you could love better? You could have had this opportunity. You wasn't humble. I mean, I look back now and, pre-pandemic, I wasn't a humble guy. Success took over my ego. And then I look at myself now and I'm such a humble guy. And I was originally humble. We grew up as kids humble, right? So, what we know as children changes because of what happens. And so we actually are very confident. We're very aware, but we lose all of that stuff through fear and other stuff. So I'd make us more aware. How I do that, probably not enough time to do today. But that will be my number one change. And then number two, and this is probably offbeat, but it does matter, is I want to create more love in the world. Yeah. Because without love, there's no kindness, there's no compassion, there's no empathy. I mean, love can mean many things and it's shown in many ways. And so to be empathic to that team member that needs your support, that really wants to try their hardest, but they keep making mistakes. Again, as a business leader, been there, done it, right? And I've also not done it when I should have done it, right? So we know what that's like. And if you have love in your heart, then you're more empathic, you're more compassionate. And that goes a long way. And that comes back at you in the universe. And again, unfortunately, there's not enough love. And maybe it's a byproduct. Maybe it's because many of us didn't receive enough love, or we have things that happen, then there's all the conversations around trauma and other stuff. But the reality is there's not enough love in the world. And if I could help us have more love, self-love, give more love. Again, the world would be a better place. We'd be better business people. We'd be better in, I'll give you an example without sounding too opinionated. Petrol and gas, right? We're still pumping that stuff out. We don't need it. We can do it from the sun, right? Just a very small but important, well, it's not small, it's a huge sector. But a very small point there is that if there was more love, all the billionaires, multi-billionaires who are in petrol would go, let's stop this now and let's do solar only. Okay, maybe we need to do petrol for some small things. So the love is not there from the top, and it goes right down to everyone else who, are leading just like, let's say average lives, not the oil giants. So for me, self-aware and love are the two major things I'd want to shift.
Got it. And it's funny because both easily multiply the other. Like if we had a little bit more self-awareness, there's a little bit more love, because a lot of the time I see this every single day where most people act out of hate, mostly because they hate themselves. So it kind of is a good, almost kind of a chicken and egg of like, do you do self-awareness first or do you love first? Because it's kind of the same sphere of, or the same part of the same side of the coin, I guess. Also, is it loops into itself of like, if you have more love, then it's better to have, then it's easier to have self-awareness because you know what to be aware about, and then loops in itself as again. So I love that vision. So as you are growing, as you are creating more love and awareness in the world, how can people follow you, can get to know you, where can they find you, all that good stuff? And we'll make sure, of course, that's all linked in the comments or in the description below.
Yeah, I have been a very, very private person, as you know, up until recently. When you are running multiple businesses and they get to multiple millions, which is I'm very fortunate to have got to, especially pre-pandemic, you don't want to be on social media. So I don't have a big history on social media, but I am now active. I'm on Instagram @AlphaMentalist. And that's by no means only alpha for only men. I'm men and women, everybody, please, no problem. And I'm about to launch on all the other channels as well, as I mentioned to you. So people can find me, we'll put it in the bio. But yeah, I'm here to stay now.
Perfect. Looking forward to a lot more of your content and sharing more of that awareness and love in the world. Thank you so much, Nico, for being on the 𝐲𝐤𝐬𝐤 podcast. And yeah, this was really good. I hope a lot of people also got value from this.
Thank you, Leanne.
I hope you guys enjoyed the interview with Nico as much as I did. I definitely learned a lot as someone who is a budding serial entrepreneur herself. And as I mentioned, you guys can follow all of Nico's information below to be able to find his content very, very easily. Now, if you guys, of course, enjoyed that episode, make sure to hit that like button so then we know that these are the kind of content that you guys want to see. If you are watching on YouTube or anywhere else, if you have a question, comment it below. And if you still haven't yet, make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of the future episodes of the 𝐲𝐤𝐬𝐤 podcast. Now, hope you guys have a wonderful day. And remember that small steps matters, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!